Hi, I'm Dazzling One, and sorry guys, I had to make this video eventually, but it seems that although there are signs that something is glaringly obvious about things not being as though they seem, still there are people, and there always will be, who label those of us who believe that we're living in some sort of matrix, which the ideal of the matrix comes from the movie The Matrix, which the real creator of it was Sophia Stewart, who created a book called The Third Eye, and she submitted it to a science fiction competition, but the Wachowski brothers, they took it, renamed it, and changed some stuff up, and they made it their own, and she finally won her lawsuit. But even that is older, that concept, going back to Plato and his analogy of the cave. But the thing is, there are more people that are aiming their frustrations at the truther communities. You know, those people who believe 9/11 was an inside job, or those who think Sandy Hook was a false flag. Some rip their hair out trying to figure out how people who wear these tinfoil hats can even exist because they're so annoying and paranoid. It's beyond their level of comprehension. According to them, people like this ignore real facts. The laughable thing about this claim is that those who say this point ideals that just because one does not subscribe to what the mainstream news stations are telling us, liberal versus conservative, left versus right, all this polarity all the time, choose this side or that side, either or, I have no other choice kind of thing, are in some form of denial and are making up these stories and fantasies in our heads to try to make sense of the reality around us. My philosophy professor, he was talking about those who believe that JFK wasn't assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald make up these conspiracies that it was the mafia, that it was the CIA, that it was this or that, because they just can't wrap their heads around the idea that a man like the President of the United States could be assassinated by one random guy who had a mental illness. Principles like Occam's razor, that sometimes the simplest answers are the right ones. Don't think too hard, you might hurt yourself. No, sometimes that is the case, but sometimes there's more to the story that meets the eye. In all fairness, it doesn't help that we have tons of people who produce videos that say Illuminati symbol exposed, and they draw a triangle between someone's legs, or they draw it on their nose, or they draw it in the corner of the screen. Which I can guarantee you that people behind that are nothing more but trolls who are bent on making those of us who do believe that there is some kind of shadow government look like fools. It also is a disservice that you have people like Alex Jones. And don't get me wrong, in the beginning, like most people who come to understand the truth, you do starve Alex Jones because when you type in any conspiracy, almost Alex Jones comes up all the time. And then he has that melodramatic, really aggressive, charismatic appeal to him, and he can get you on the edge of your seat and to believe that the world's going to end in another month, and then it goes on. And I soon realized there was not much difference between him and any other charismatic person on TV, and he's one of the biggest fearmongers out there. And of course, it doesn't help that we had people playing prophets and predicting that Big Ben was going to explode at the London Olympics because of the Illuminati card with it and the V for Vendetta movie. It also wasn't great that people mixed in the New Age nonsense of the world ending in December, on December 21st of 2012 with everything. But like all movements, it has been infiltrated. Others who are in it have ulterior motives, or people's hearts change, they sell out or make it a game of fame. Like, wow, I'm getting a lot of numbers, so now I'm gonna stop talking more about the truth and talk more about myself, or more about kind of fear-mongering things, because that's what people eat up. One thing I realized about a lot of people is you have a lot of people who love the ideal of being scared or being feeling of this excitement. And so I feel like that's another reason why it gives conspiracy a bad name. And a lot of these people who are critics are fine with CNN playing the same news story over and over again, no matter how repetitive it is, failing to see the patterns in every story and the agenda, and are quick to believe every statistic, not taking into account the sample size or the demographics or where it was done, And if there were any biases, and are quick to download any garbage that is a hit album, even if they know it's nonsensical, and are willing to go with whatever trend is out there. And I know this is kind of a broad or blanket statement, but what I'm saying is, when you look at statistics, you can't just believe it just because, oh, 99% of this, it was done by scientists, it was done by psychologists, it was done by researchers. Okay, wait a minute. Where did you get your sample size? Did you do the survey in a diverse area, or did you take it from one area with little diversity? Did you, and then of course there's biases that just go into it as well. And then of course a lot of people are just, you tell them, this music, there's something wrong with it, the lyrics are meaningless. They might be like, yeah, maybe they are, but that's just what it is today. And they're willing to accept it and look no further. And it kind of reminds me of what I realized as a 16-year-old in high school. I used to say to myself, if you go with the world, you never know who you are, and if you continually change yourself to fit in, then you won't have any identity. And a lot of people think they're thinking for themselves, but really they're letting the big think tanks, the politicians, the economists, whoever has credentials think for them. And in college, one of the big things you learn is, which I'm currently in college right now, I'm going to be going into my third year next fall, but if you're writing a paper of some sort, like a term paper, you want to make sure you get someone with credentials, philosophers, doctors, scientists, politicians, someone who's an expert, who has gotten a degree. And the funny thing about that is a lot of people take that concept that I can only listen to people who are educated, people who have some sort of experience, and some of those people that whoever is teaching them it has biases. They're following a curriculum. They're following a set of guidelines. Like, this is the way things are. This is the way you think. And so anyone outside of that can't be trusted. Like, if I'm walking down the street and a bum wants to give me life advice, don't listen to the guy if he's never gone to college or anything. But what if that guy is really wise? And the thing about wisdom I learned is wisdom comes from God, like Solomon. He asked God for wisdom. Knowledge, you can learn it from a book. It's something that is attained through understanding. You can learn it from others. But wisdom is a God-given gift. And like I said in another video, street smarts and book smarts, of course, we all know are two different things. And you can't learn everything about life in school. You can't learn it all from an education. And like I said, yes, you should be aware of just anybody. Don't take everything you hear as truth. Just because somebody says this doesn't mean it's true. But at the same time, don't write everyone off. You can learn from everyone what to do, what not to do. It's amazing. And just looking at a few websites. This is taken from the New York Times. They did an article on why rational people buy into conspiracy theories, and they had psychologists try to research this. And it's funny to me, like the lingo and the jargon they use for this, and the claims they make, because as they talk about us making broad or very outlandish statements and our ideals being kind of out there, to kind of stereotype and judge is its own kind of big fallacy. But anyways, I'll read to you a little bit from this site. So right here it talks about how, as Richard, I'm probably not going to say this guy's name right, Hofstadter wrote in his seminal 1965 book, The Paranoid Style in American Politics, conspiracy theories, especially those involving meddlesome foreigners, our favorite pastime in the nation. Americans have always had the sneaking suspicion that somebody was out to get us, be it Freemasons, Catholics, or Communists. But in recent years, it seems as if every tragedy comes with a round of yarn spinning, as the web fills with stories about false flags, attacks, and crisis actors, not mere theorizing, but arguments for the existence of completely alternate versions of reality. Since Hofstadter's book was published, our access to information has vastly improved, which you would think would have helped minimize such wild speculation, but according to recent scientific research on the matter, it most likely only serves to make theories more convincing to the public. What's even more surprising is that this sort of theorizing isn't limited to those on the margins, perfectly sane minds possess an incredible capacity for developing narratives, and even some of the wildest conspiracy theories can be grounded in rational thinking, which makes them that much more pernicious. Consider this: 63% of registered American voters believe in at least one political conspiracy theory, according to a recent poll conducted by Fairleigh Dickinson University. While psychologists can't know exactly what goes on inside our heads, they have summarized this research in The Psychologist, a scientific journal. They found, perhaps surprisingly, that believers are more likely to be cynical about the world in general and politics in particular. Conspiracy theories also seem to be more compelling to those with low self-worth, especially with regard to their sense of agency and the world at large. Conspiracy theories appear to be a way of reacting to uncertainty and powerlessness. Economic recessions, terrorist attacks, and natural disasters are massive looming threats, but we have little power over when they occur, or what happened afterward. In these moments of powerlessness and uncertainty, a part of the brain called the amygdala kicks into action. Paul Whelan, a scientist at Dartmouth College who studies the amygdala, says it doesn't exactly do anything on its own. Instead, the amygdala jumpstarts the rest of the brain into an analytical overdrive, prompting repeated reassessments of information in an attempt to create a coherent and understandable narrative. To understand what just happened, what threats still exist, and what should be done now. This may be a useful way to understand how, writ large, the brain's capacity for generating new narratives after shocking events can contribute to so much paranoia in this country. If you know the truth and others don't, that's one way you can reassert feelings of having agency, Swami says. It has been comforting to do your own research, even if that research is flawed. It feels good to be the wise old goat in a flock of sheep. Oh my god, this is really funny. Surprisingly, Swami's work has also turned up a correlation between conspiracy theorizing and strong support of democratic principles, but this isn't quite so strange if you consider the context. Catherine Olmsted, a historian at the University of California, Davis, says that conspiracy theories wouldn't exist in a world in which real conspiracies don't exist. And those conspiracies, Watergate of Iran, Contra affair, often involve manipulating and circumventing the democratic process. Even people who believe that Sandy Hook shooting was actually a drama staged by actors couch their arguments in concern for the preservation of the Second Amendment. Our access to high-quality information has not, unfortunately, ushered in an age in which disagreements of this sort can easily be solved with a quick Google search. In fact, the internet has made things worse. Confirmation bias, the tendency to pay more attention to evidence that supports what you already believe, is a well-documented and common human failing. People have been writing about it for centuries. In recent years, though, researchers have found that confirmation biases is not easy to overcome. You can't just drown in it in facts. In 2006, the political scientists Brendan Nyhan and Jason Reifler identified a phenomenon called the backfire effect. They showed that efforts to debunk inaccurate political information can leave people more convinced that the false information is true than they would have been otherwise. Nyhan isn't sure why this happens, but it appears to be more prevalent when the bad information helps bolster a favored worldview or ideology. In that way, Swami says the internet and other media have helped perpetuate paranoia. Not only does more exposure to these alternative narratives help gender beliefs and conspiracies, he says, but the internet's tendency towards tribalism helps reinforce misguided beliefs. And that's a problem, because while believing George W. Bush helped plan the September 11th attacks might make you feel in control, it doesn't actually make you so. Earlier this year, Karen Douglas, a University of Kent psychologist, along with a student, published research in which they exposed people to conspiracy theories about climate change and the death of Princess Diana. Those who got information supporting the theories but not information debunking them were more likely to withdraw from participation in politics and were less likely to take action to reduce the carbon footprints. Alex Jones, a syndicate radio host, can build fame as a conspiracy peddler. Politicians can hint at conspiracies for votes and leverages. But if conspiracy theories are a tool the average person uses to reclaim his sense of agency and access to democracy, it's an ineffective tool. It can even have dangerous health implications. For example, research has shown that African Americans who believe AIDS is a weapon loosed on them by the government, remembering the abuse of the Tuskegee experiment, are less likely to practice protected sex. And if you believe that governments or corporations are hiding evidence that vaccines harm children, you're less likely to have your children vaccinated. The results pockets of measles and whooping cough infections and few deaths in places with low child vaccination rates. Psychologists aren't sure whether powerlessness caused conspiracy theories or vice versa. Either way, the current scientific thinking suggests these beliefs are nothing more than an extreme form of cynicism, a turning away from politics and traditional media which only perpetuates the problem. So, just reading from that article by the New York Times, you can see that they say that if you believe in these things, then most likely you're someone who wants to feel like you have a place and you want to feel special, but no, just accept what you hear. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best one, and don't believe that there's false flags. Stuff is really happening. Although, yes, there was, the whole Contra scandal and there was Watergate. Still, scandals happen, guys, but believing everything is a conspiracy, that's just not right. And I'm not saying everything is a conspiracy, but I am saying that there's a lot of fishy stuff going on, and I wouldn't just dismiss it. And the thing, about, oh, people think AIDS was a conspiracy, and so they don't practice protected sex. I don't buy it. Or people, they don't vaccinate their kids and they get sick. Or there are people who vaccinate their kids and now their kids have autism or they have other things, and that's why. So a lot of the stuff they said, I just talked about fear-mongering. A lot of it was fear-mongering as well, but pretty much just to sum this all up, low self-worth and all that, or it's funny how the story changes. Like I was talking about, the story always changes. Some articles I read, people who believe in conspiracy theories are less educated, have nothing going on, and then some people, they're too educated and they want to feel powerful. But the thing about being a conspiracy nut or whatever is it's annoying because they can't stop shutting these people up. And the reason they said the internet's made it worse is because they thought the internet was going to be more of a distraction, dumbing down. Instead, more people are going out there voicing their opinions and uniting, and they don't like that as well. But I just wanted to throw that out there for those who are like, oh, the minds of the conspiracy nuts. That is by psychologists and scientists' point of view, but from someone who understands the truth's point of view, you can't really box everyone into the same box because we're not all going to agree. Some of us think some things are false flags, some of us think some things are relevant, some of us think they're crisis actors. And with the truth movement, you have people coming in with different backgrounds and beliefs. We have atheists that are conspiracy theorists and Christians and Muslims and so forth. So people interpret things from the viewpoint of the Bible or from a more scientific approach or from the Quran, or just there are different ideals that come in, and we don't always have to agree on everything. We can agree to disagree, but it's great that people are putting their opinions out there, they're voicing their concerns, and people aren't just buying what they see on television or what the news stations or the radio stations are telling them, and people aren't just occupying themselves with all of the nonsensical garbage that's out there today to listen to and watch. I find it amazing, and it's always cool whenever I see people that are older who are doing it just as much as when I see people that are young, like children and people under 18, because when all generations are involved, it's just great. We all bring different viewpoints, and like I said, we can learn from everyone, I believe, and I'm glad that the truth movement, I know there's so many terms for it, but it's spread, and that more people are at least willing to give it a chance, even if they don't always agree with everything. The thing is, it's funny though how, because I was just Googling, there's just so many articles how to deal with a family member if they're turning into a conspiracy theorist, or how to deal with a friend if they're turning into it. So as you can see, there is a growing concern, and people talk about I'm not sure, there was a new bill, I think, internet bill. They're working hard to censor the internet for some reason. And like they were saying, well, I don't understand why whenever we try to suppress it, we try to tell them it's not real, they think it's even more real. But just common sense kind of says if you're trying to warn people or tell people something, and then someone says, oh, it's not true, and they're working so hard against it, maybe there is some truth to it. Maybe. The key word is maybe there. I'm not saying it's always the case, but I hope you guys all have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you next week. Take care, and God bless.